exactly what we want to be, Mr. Junction was. And we all have those students that just seem to just learn differently, or maybe they don't like to sit in the chair, but they are paying attention. Oftentimes I catch one of my students, it looks like they're off task. I'll say, Johnny, what did I just say? Thinking Johnny wasn't even paying attention to me. And sure enough, Johnny's able to repeat exactly what it was that I just said. So I realized, okay, students don't have to be just sitting in their chairs, hands folded, doing exactly what you would think, students do and sitting properly to be able to learn. No, students learn at different rates, with different styles, developmentally. Some might take a little longer. But so differentiating instruction is when teachers make a concerted effort to respond to the variance in learning among the students in their classroom. They're not all going to be the same. So differentiated instruction is a sensitizing concept that is used to circumscribe a variety of strategies for successfully dealing with student diversity in the classroom. And here is my reference on where I got that of classrooms are all diverse, whether it's economic, socioeconomic status, whether it's culturally diverse, even in the learning spectrum. There are so many different students that we serve in our classrooms, especially those of us that are teaching in a public school where we welcome the doors to anybody that comes in. So how can we be the best teacher for that student? And oftentimes when we're giving assessments, right, we tell them, this test isn't for you. This test is to show me how I can be a better teacher to you. I tell parents that too. I know you guys do that as well. Like, I want to be the best teacher for your child because all children learn differently. There's a wide variety of student needs when it comes to our classrooms. So how can teachers differentiate? So teachers can differentiate in 3 ways in the classroom. We can differentiate through content, through process, and through products. So content is what the student needs to learn or how the student will access the information. And I'll go into a little more detail on that. And process are the activities in which the student engages in order to make sense of or master the content. And products are the culminating projects that ask the student to rehearse, apply, and extend what he or she has learned in a unit. So, when do teachers differentiate? Okay, so examples of factors that are important to consider when identifying individual student needs, and kind of already touched a little bit on this, but the background knowledge of the child. What do they know? What don't they know? Interests. What do they like? Oftentimes that's going to be the key into getting the students to be engaged in our lessons. What are their learning styles? What type of intelligences? Levels of motivation, preparedness to perform certain academic tasks. If they didn't come into our grade level prepared, well, maybe we might need to support those needs to catch them up to the grade level and where we need them to be, and then we can actually take them forward. So, however, differences in profiles, according to Smets, indicates that they are not seen as fixed traits, but rather ones that are able to mold and change. So we don't look at a student as a fixed ability or learning capacity. We look at students as we need to help them reach to their highest potential. We need to teach them that growth mindset so that they can't say, oh, I don't know that. We teach them, I don't know that yet. And I know you guys already do that. So why is differentiating instruction important? Okay, so we have this video to kind of give a little more insight on why it's important to differentiate.
I'm Larry Filazzo. Differentiating instruction. To some educators, it conjures visions of having to create a different lesson for every student in the room and long nights of planning and grading. That insanity is not what differentiation is all about. Differentiating instruction is really a way of thinking, not a pre-planned list of strategies. Oftentimes, it is making decisions in the moment based on this mindset. It's recognizing that, to paraphrase Rick Wormerly, fair doesn't always mean treating everyone equally. It's recognizing that all of our students bring different gifts and challenges, and that as educators, we need to recognize those differences and use our professional judgment to flexibly respond to them in our teaching. Carol Tomlinson talks about the ability to differentiate in three areas: content, process, and product. For content, student choice is one way we might differentiate, like allowing students to choose their research topics or essay prompts. As teachers, we need to keep our eyes on the prize. In other words, we have to keep asking ourselves, what are the main learning objectives? One day, my students were writing an argument essay about what would be the worst natural disaster to experience. John's head was down on the desk. He was not doing anything. I knew that he was interested in football, so I told him that he could write an essay on why his favorite team was the best. He would still have to make an argument just about football instead of hurricanes or earthquakes. His eyes lit up. He got to work and wrote what his mother later told me was the first essay he'd ever written in school. He had followed all the guidelines of a good argument essay. The prize, in this case, was learning to write an argument essay, not learning to write about natural disasters. To differentiate by process, teachers can change up how they group students. Sometimes a mixed ability group might work best, while sometimes it might be appropriate to have same ability groups. We might have an English proficient buddy work with an English language learner to help them out. During independent reading time in my early morning class several years ago, one student tended to fall asleep. I told him that if he wanted, he could go to the back and sit on a desk and read. Soon, several others joined him. A few days later, I saw another student dozing off. Before I could say anything, one of his classmates whispered to him, "Just go sit on a desk." Again, it's a matter of keeping our eyes on the prize. What are the learning objectives and what are the best roads to get there for different students? Teachers can also differentiate by the type of product students create. The major demonstration of learning doesn't always have to be an essay or a multiple choice test. One year I had a student who liked to doodle when other students or I were talking. I told her it was okay as long as she was doodling about the information we were discussing. She built on those doodles to create a final project that brilliantly and visually represented all the key points we had covered. When I give tests, I often give students an extra blank page where they can write anything else they remember about the topic being tested that they think is important. I often find the quality of thinking and writing better there than in response to my test questions. None of the differentiating strategies I've mentioned have created any extra work for me. They did require that I had relationships with my students to know their strengths, challenges, and interests. And I needed to demonstrate flexibility in my thinking. Making these strategies successful also required building a strong class culture so that some of the students were being treated differently and they understood why. And they understood that was the only way to be truly fair. The ideas mentioned here are just a drop in the bucket. There are a zillion other ways we can support our students' gifts and challenges. We just need to keep our minds and ears open.
Okay, so the main takeaway from that video really is the relationships that we have with our students. We need to make sure that we know who they are. I guess I didn't close that video out. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we need to make sure we know who our students are. Let me go back real quick. Yeah. So if we don't know who our students are, well, how are we going to know what interests them? How are we going to know how we can differentiate the content? Okay, so going back to the video that we just watched, the content was differentiated from the hurricanes writing essay to a football writing essay. It's still a writing assignment. You're just trying to gain into the interests of what your students like. So here I went ahead and I took what was the Bloom's taxonomy to demonstrate how we could design the activities for the content. So here remembering is at the base. Then it goes to understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. So over here on the activities that I placed, I put this color to which matches just for a visual, because I'm a visual learner too. I know a lot of you guys are too. But the